All right. So the TV folks supposed to be here? TV camera people?
Channel 5 said they were gonna show up. But I don't know. They asked for the information. We take it off the recording? Yes, sir. Trying to think of the guy's name.
You doing?
Designated spot. That's just somewhere on the wall, doesn't matter.
Yeah, just take the river, you know, probably back to it, maybe, I don't know.
It's like that's- How's it going? Good.
On towards the plans?
Your way.
Sarah had her baby?
Mhm.
She did,
She just did,
today?
yeah, like an hour ago.
Okay,
Oh,
not much I can do.
texted Levan yesterday and I never heard back from her.
She was in the, like 36
I don't-
hours,
I mean, you're
Who did she have?
the girl.
the legal person.
Yeah,
So-
usually prepared for
Her name
these.
is Andrew.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. That's,
Hopefully
you
that's
got
the
that
only
hand.
son.
That I just referred over. I would,
I have to deal with the PUC and I understand.
yeah, that's.
Let's see how this.
An extra copy of the agenda.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yep.
Hey, George, you must have some clout getting all these people here on a late afternoon pre-holiday.
If you don't have a quorum, what can we do?
I mean, we can give it a couple more minutes, but I can go into my updates as well. But another minute or two to see who else joins and then.
Like now,
No,
I'm gonna be on the board.
oh, you are?
It's just not official.
Okay.
Until next week. So.
Thank you, Tim.
Patty and Anthony, I have certificates for you next time I see you. So I've been hanging on to these, but next time you're around, I'll give them to you guys.
Okay, I'll be at the next meeting. In person.
Great, thank you, Andrew.
So we do have 12 commissioners. Part of the Energy Advisory Commission, all volunteers, as am I. And our quorum is 6. We have 4 right now, so we may not be able to do official business, but we can kind of follow through on the agenda. We do have some guests. But let's wait a couple more minutes.
Need one more for quorum. One more for quorum.
Okay. Am I missing 1, 2, 3, 4?
Patty, Mike,
Oh, there's
and
more, okay, there's more on the list, okay, gotcha,
Mike, Anthony, Patty, Michael.
okay.
Okay, now we're at quorum.
I'm looking at the top row there and it's, I'm not looking at your list going down. Thank you.
Yeah.
And is this meeting also streaming online or?
It will be posted online after.
Alright.
It's not live streamed though.
So what's Andy Cruz?
We can go ahead and call the word. We have quorum.
Okay. Do we have? Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. Let's go through the consent agenda, and this is basically for the commissioners to approve the minutes from the last meeting. So if I can get a motion to approve the minutes in a second.
A motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second. Everybody that approves, say yes. Yes.
yes.
Anybody that's disapproves, say no. Okay, minutes are approved, so we can go into the next session, which is basically city updates by Julie.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Do have a couple updates I'd like to share with you all on the projects I'm working on. So let me just share my screen shortly. Okay, can everyone online see the screen? Whoops. Let me
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so to kick things off, I would like to update you all with where we are with the EV readiness plan. We just launched our community survey. It's now live. The survey was developed to understand qualitative questions about citizens of Pueblo and the surrounding community, their transportation preferences. So now that just launched, we're working through that, and it will be live until August 11th. And it's on the city's website, front page trending links, bottom right. So if you haven't already, please take the survey, give us your thoughts, your concerns, and please share with those who are close to you. We want to get as many responses as possible.
When did you send that?
Oops. Pardon me?
When did you send that email? Cause I remember seeing it.
A couple days ago. Okay, this is just the link to the survey as well. I could share it with you all if you need it. It's also on the city's Facebook page. Of course, we're seeking diverse responses. We want everyone from the community represented in the survey. As of today, we've received 94 responses this morning, accounting for about 17% identifying as Hispanic. So we really want to promote that throughout the different communities, citizen communities. Whoops. So some things we have already seen with the open-ended questions relate to affordability of EVs, infrastructure availability, battery range, safety of EVs, the impact of EVs for fleets. So that was interesting, as well as more support for public transit and biking. So those are just the initial themes we've already seen from those open-ended questions. Okay, and we will be planning a workshop number 2 for the middle of September. The date is not yet finalized, but this will be a workshop with our secondary stakeholders and the community at large to really just confirm the results from that survey. So it will be geared toward education and advocacy community groups that will help promote the adoption of the EV readiness plan. The next deliverable for Iconergy, the contractor we're working on, is their market assessment report that will be due next Friday, July 12th. So we'll be able to dig into their research, their assessment of the current market for EVs in Pueblo. Talking about the approval process now, we're looking to get this approved through city council. So that the city can follow through with the plan. So we're looking at a reading by resolution, and Andrew has tentatively scheduled the October 15th work session presentation for this. However, if council doesn't want to have a work session and believes in staff's recommendation to adopt the plan, then we won't have that. But of course, we're looking to present October 15th at work session. And then on the October 28th city council meeting, looking to get the plan adopted. Okay, moving on to the grant I've been working on with Luann, the Charging, Fueling, and Infrastructure, CFNI grant. It's due August 28th, so we have just under 2 months to complete that. The program is divided into 2 categories, communities and corridors. The city is applying for the community aspect. And so we're seeking partners now. We are looking at low to moderate income areas, specifically with multifamily housing, place of worship, rec centers, other key pillars of the community who might be interested in partnering with this. So of course, if you have any referrals that you can send to me with people who would be interested at community sites to work on this, then that'd be greatly appreciated. And also asking the rest of the commissioners for a letter of support on this grant as well. It'll be very important for the application. Okay, now keeping.
George, hey George, before you move on, yeah, do you have a summary of the grant that we could give to potential partners?
Yes, definitely. I can share that out. What the Federal Highway Administration has released on that.
Okay,
So I can share that.
perfect. Thanks.
Okay, keeping on the topic of EVs now, I'd like to just share a couple snapshots from city's charge point account. So this is our 14 ports, all operational and no faulted, so that's good to see. Station usage, time of day, we see it's more toward the beginning of the day, and then it tapers off in the afternoon and the evening, probably accounting for people parking, using it for work. So the usage, the time, a lot of under 3 hours, but also some heavier dwelling times as well, greater than 6 hours. And then unique drivers, I thought this was interesting for June, 59 unique drivers, almost doubling from May and April. So continuing to trend up, and as more EVs get on the road, there will be more unique drivers. So that's important to see.
Do these chargers include the new beam chargers?
Yes.
What's important? That's for additional available chargers.
So the sessions now, a lot of sessions in June, 326, up from about 200 in May. So this is showing that there is high utilization with the chargers, and people are continuing to use them. Average session length, just under 3 hours, so about 2 hours of charging, but also there is idling time as well. People not necessarily getting their vehicles right at the end of their charging. But that's about the average for the last 30 days. Okay, as well as energy dispensed. just a little bit over 4 MWh in June. But higher in February and March, although June has more unique drivers and more sessions. So that could mean that people were at lower battery in February and March, really charging them up, getting more energy dispersed from the chargers.
In my experience in the winter, they take longer to charge. I drive a Tesla, so
Yeah, so
What was taking longer to check?
in the winter, like when it's colder, it takes longer. So,
and then financials over the past 30 days distributed 3.98 MWh. That is estimated at about 14 cents per kilowatt hour. That's probably on the lower side of the energy dispersed. It's probably more about the 17 cents per kilowatt hour. How EV charging has helped the environment. It's like removing 29,500 kilograms of greenhouse gas, like planting 757 trees for 10 years. Okay, moving on to energy performance.
I was gonna say that one of the points for folks is that the charge point, all of the cities operated charging stations are free. So there's no energy cost to drivers at the moment. That is good until the end of September this year. That's something that council will have to consider coming up. So for awareness that is a fee schedule set by resolution, and commission may be asking for recommendation or information, I guess, to present back as a recommendation for going forward that resolution would be coming forward again in September or before September for effective. It will become effective October 1st. So just heads up, that's expiring here soon.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Okay, moving on to energy performance contracting now. We have received 7 bids from these companies. We are now evaluating them. And we are planning to have the evaluations complete by next Friday, July 12th, with the resolution to award that following the next city council meeting. So what are we looking for when it comes to evaluating these bids? Well, we're looking at different criteria like management, market sector expertise, qualifications, design, construction, measurement and verification will be important. Post-construction support, financing, what the cost capital looks like, getting the new equipment on, as well as the annual costing, what that looks like for the MNV, for the software that they use, but also what is the best value for the investment that we are, what we're getting. So this is just an example of the desired solar that we're looking at. We see on the top the site locations with the base of look like, as well as the kilowatt hours generated and what that percent offset looks like. So we can see here on the left is the Municipal Justice Center as well as the parking lot. So these are helioscope models of potential solar for these sites. This is the Main Street garage, but this is probably on the lower end of the offset because you can see this part is just limited for the garage. So if we're looking at the rest of the perimeter, it could potentially be more. As well as here on the right, City Hall or Memorial Hall with covered parking as well. So that's just an example of what we're looking at and potentially a project selection.
These are concepts, right? These are ideas, not
Yes,
projects.
ideas.
That all comes following the completion of the investment grade audit. It's going to be performed as we select.
Yeah, so I wanted to say something about this energy performance contract. So I did behind an energy performance contract is that it will pay for itself in savings. So you don't do anything that's not going to save you money. Okay, so important things to consider. How long does it take to do the payback, there's a measurement piece to this too, that makes sure that you are getting that, there's a, performance evaluation, that you are getting that payback. So the thing is that our universities, both Colorado State University Pueblo and Pueblo Community College, have gone through these things and have saved millions of dollars, okay? I mean, the big savings for CSU Pueblo is they went to a net metering university, right? So that big solar farm on the northeast side of the campus, or north side of the campus, is powering that university. So we're thinking that we could do something similar with the city.
So we've got solar projects kind of highlighted here. This could cover a range of different energy projects. It could be HVAC system, it could be anything, it could be insulation project, could be any range of projects that have a payback that's appropriate. We select those. We don't have to pick everything that comes off of the consultant's recommended list. We can set criteria based on, we want this minimum payback, we want sort of return on investment, those kinds of factors we can consider as we make project selection. But solar is a potential one that has been expensive to do in the past because panels have been expensive, implementation costs have been expensive. There are structures in place now, and costs of these systems have come down such that they might be viable projects to do under an energy performance contract structure. So these are one of many types of projects that we're making. And about a third of our building footprint is included in this assessment. It'll be a big deal.
One more thing I just want to add, the best energy is the energy you save and never use. That's right. So that's a big aspect of your thing.
Okay, now I'd just like to share a couple events coming up. These were from the last meeting as well. So next week, July 11th, COSA, Colorado Solar Storage Association, event at PCC from 9 to 3:15. Here's the email for the organizer if you're interested in attending, as well as the event link as well as in the slides I can share with everyone. So that's next week. It should be a really exciting event talking about solar developments, land use, battery storage, safety, and the future of the energy grid. And this is the agenda for that event, starting at 8:30 with several different panels, utility procurement, best practices, safe operations of energy storage. So if you're interested, reach out to Jeremiah below and he can get you on the attendee list. Okay, and then July 20th is the Electric Avenue event at the Fuel and Iron Food Hall, 3 to 4 p.m. It is a cook-off competition, Top Chef style, using electric restaurant equipment. But also there will be other tables as well. It's an all things electric expo. We'll have Black Hills there, the Latino Chamber there, as well as Michael's Energy. And it is no cost to participate. Just show up. And you can find out more on the link here, goodbusinesscolorado.org/events. And that concludes my updates today. I'll take any questions or comments you may have.
Just one other minor update, but the recent award of the grants for the EV chargers. I've been working with Black Hills on trying to get the long lead transformers in order. Those are for the level 3 chargers that we're getting. The transformer size is such that it may take several months, more than a year potentially to order that. So we're working with them now to make sure we're communicating with the Colorado Energy Office on how long it's going to take us to actually get those installed and built.
And that is for the level 3 battery chargers.
Particularly for the level 3, because it's such a large capacity transformer. That those level 3 chargers will be installed in the parking lot right back here by the Main Street Garage. And there's a separate grant that was also for a total of 5 level 2 chargers. 3 of them at the Main Street Garage and 2 of them at, I'm sorry, I think we're going to do 2 at the Main Street Garage and 3 at the Weisbach Garage over by Ice Rink. So those are also coming, but they'll look like probably the same project or about the same time frame. But the transformer upgrades and getting the long lead items into the schedule is gonna be important. So we're trying to work with Black Hills now to get those ordered so we can,
And these are all gonna be public.
those will all be public, all 5 and 8 or 9 of those new charging units. So.
So lots of EV work going on now, which is exciting to see.
Okay, George, can you put up that camera? We'll kick off the next session, which is a conversation with Joe Herrera, is that you?
Herrera.
Who's come down from the PUC, the utility consumer advocate, which kind of advocates for, for the ratepayers. So I wanted to show this graph here. Because we're in the middle of a recent rate request from Black Hills Electric, where they want to raise our rates on the low side for residential about 18%. And the graph to the very right, I know this is my chart. The graph to the very right is where Black Hills is today, already the most expensive utility. And if you add another $20 to that, that's going to be off the chart. Okay, so they're an outlier. Okay, and they're saying they need more money because of inflation and this. Anyway, we wanted to talk with the UCA to see what can we do as a community to mitigate this.
Sure. Well, thanks everyone for the invitation to come down and chat here. It's kind of odd to talk to folks at the table, so if folks online and I'm talking away or whatever can't hear me, just
We can
let me know.
probably stop sharing.
Sure. But Ken reached out and thought, we might be useful as a resource to come down and chat with you all. As he mentioned, I'm with the Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate. We're a small independent agency that sits within DORO, which is also the broader agency where the PUC sits. We're comprised of analysts and policy folks and represented by several lawyers at the Attorney General's office. And our day-to-day work is before the Public Utilities Commission, FERC, and the courts to represent the public interest broadly and kind of specifically residential, small business, and agricultural customers across the state. And so that's how we're really engaged and involved in this proceeding. As was mentioned, Black Hills has come in, I believe, after eight years, seeking a $36.7 million annual increase in rates. There's a lot of components to that ask. Some of what they're asking is pretty large, maybe unusually large compared to what we see our commission approving on a kind of utility to utility basis. For example, they're asking for return on equity, which is, the return to shareholders of about 10.5%. It's pretty large. I would say that's a distinct outlier from where the commission has been. I'll just say the commission is generally trending down on approved ROEs, and this would be a distinct turn from that if that were approved. Largely, Black Hills is saying this is driven from increased investment from the last case. And so a simplified way to understand what's going on is over the last 8 years, Black Hills has been building a lot of stuff. Transmission, distribution system, investments, basically like substations and transmission lines in particular. And now they're coming in and asking for recovery for all those bills. And so, I think that it's kind of like a deferred ask, so to speak, for those investments. So they haven't come in for a rate case in 8 years. That means they've been using the approved revenue every year to operate. Then they've been kind of floating the costs for these investments, and now they're coming to ask the Public Utilities Commission for approval to recover through rates those expenditures. As was mentioned, they're proposing a monthly rate increase of just over $20 for a residential customer and $25 for a small commercial customer. One interesting piece of this filing for us is that the way the pie is divided up between different types of customers, residential, small commercial, large industrial customers and whatnot, shows on its basics, a 26% increase for residential customers. Obviously unusually large. We don't usually see asks, of that magnitude for this customer group. What they're saying is that's largely driven by, costs associated with those customers. That's what that means. They haven't really seen load growth for commercial and industrial customers, but they have for residential customers on an aggregate basis, but on a per customer basis, usage is down. And so that leads to this kind of shift. They're proposing, though, a different treatment in which they spread those costs out amongst all customers more evenly. This rate mitigation strategy is pretty odd as well. We don't usually see utilities come in that way. There's some changes to their smaller fees. That fixed charge on your bill, the flat fee that everyone pays, they're asking for about $1 increase, or maybe less than that, 50 cents, 40 cents, something like that, on that fee. The commission has generally been unfavorable to increases in fixed fees. It's kind of fees through collection through fixed fees, like disincentivizes energy efficiency and solar and those kind of things. And so the commission generally has said no to large increases on the fixed fee. So that's generally what's going on. The procedurally where we're at is the company has filed their application. That's the big ask. This is and today the commission certified the application as complete. What that means is that they've looked it over and all the required bits are there. It's not like a value statement on, those bits or, anything like that. It just says, what you're supposed to have turned in is complete. And so we're certifying that. And now that triggers what's called an intervention period. I know some folks here are familiar with that, but this is the period where parties will decide if they want to intervene in the proceeding and be part of that. I believe I'm not a lawyer, and so I probably shouldn't even throw out a number, but I think that this is a 30-day period. So the commission is soon looking for interventions. Our office is an intervener by right, which means all we have to do is kind of say we want to be part of the case and we're in. Others have to permissively intervene, the city or the county, and different customer types and all of that. So we're very early in the case. There's a lot to kind of still be reviewed and sorted out, and lots to be understood. But I think that's generally where we sit. We, of course, will develop an advocacy position for our office that may be similar to other parties. It may have some differences, and we'll develop different stances on some of the different proposals within the plan. For example, a time of use rate is proposed within the plan. There's some discussion on net metering treatment for solar customers within the plan. And so, all these will be reviewed and developed, and I think different avenues explored there. So that's really where we're at. The basic question is like, what can we do? mean, I think there's a lot of avenues. That the city and county have both. Been aware of for a while, and the PUC and the UCA, the city and county are no strangers. In our proceedings, so I mean, the obvious kind of answer is, intervention. I think is important. The city and county have been active. One thing that we were talking about in the office and, thinking about, on the way down here was, are there other groups, within the city and county, other interested groups that have particular perspectives? Is there a role for them to play in the formal proceeding? Maybe. Pueblo has also been really good at public outreach and comment to the commission, and I think the commission remembering back to the last rate case and also issues with public services, ERP and Comanche 3 and whatnot. The public here has been really involved, and I think the commission really respects that and takes that those comments and those perspectives very serious. And so I think, having the public play a role in that and providing feedback, asking for public hearings, those kind of things, I think is an important step. I mean, Pueblo is great at making its voice heard, and I think its voice gets taken serious.
So Joe, how do we go about that? How soon can we have that, the PUC come to Pueblo to hear how the citizens of Pueblo?
Yeah. So I mentioned this intervention process. So the first step is, developing the parties for the proceeding. Once those parties are set, then the parties generally work together to develop a procedural schedule. There are some statutory guidelines on when this all needs to be resolved, but public hearings are part of that procedural schedule. Generally, I think they come later in the process. I don't know if that's by design or that's just kind of how we've always done it. I think I would relay if you feel like it's better to have on earlier in the process, whoever is representing the city, if the city gets involved or the county gets involved, I think it would be fair game to lay that out and say, hey, kind of like this earlier, to inform, parties and let you all know what our perspectives are rather than later after you've already submitted your testimony and all of that. I think that's a good idea. We get stuck in our ways, and so, asking for that might make a lot of sense.
Okay. So do we make that request through our interveners, or do we just send the commission out?
Yeah, I think generally it's through the parties, since once the UCA and the PUC staff and say the city and county, and trying to think who generally intervenes, the solar parties and maybe large customers. Once those folks are all in the case, it would be, I think, useful to reach out to whoever is kind of leading the charge for Pueblo to say, hey, we have a different idea. We would like a public hearing early, before answer testimony, for an example, as an example, or one before answer testimony and one after. I don't know exactly, you all would have to decide what's right for your community, but it would come through them and then kind of informally through a recommendation to the commission. And then once that recommendation is put forward, the commission would hear what the parties say and set an order, the date and time.
Sounds like from the irregularities, you perceiving here that UCA is intending to intervene.
Yes, yeah, we'll definitely intervene. I mean, we're a regular party to rate cases. You know, as I've kind of alluded to, you know, this one is large and, you know, from our perspective, maybe a little unexpected. You know, we had been operating under the messaging that Black Hills has been, you know, working toward affordability within its territory, and that you know, in the time that they have been out on the rate case, that there haven't been kind of more than routine expenditures and whatnot. When we see the rate case, we are a bit surprised by the size and level of activity, not really matching what we understood was going on. So we have as representatives of, you know, these customers, have an interest in making sure that, you know, these rates and asks don't go through unchecked. I mean, it's one thing to stay out for a while on a rate case, but if if all you're doing is, you know, kind of just piling your stuff this way and kind of, you know, off to the side and then carrying those costs for a little while, and at the same time messaging affordability, it feels a bit disingenuous.
Yeah,
So we're not there.
I wanted to say, you know, it wasn't, but a few months ago that we heard from Black Hills, from Michael Harrington, I believe it was. He came and presented on their clean energy plan, where they're gonna build out renewable energy. About 400 megawatts of renewable energy, which includes, at that time, wind, solar, and batteries. It was a good thing. And they showed at that time the rates to be flat until about 2030. And now, with the new management here at Black Hills, they introduced this request to massively raise the rates, right? And it needs to be understood. You know, this is an open meeting, so anybody can ask a question if you had a question.
So we do have a question from online. Why is Black Hills allowed to make improvements and then come to the PUC for reimbursement to customer bureaus bills? Is that something you can speak on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are kind of two processes that a utility would generally ask for cost recovery on. First is, you know, imagine a big out of the ordinary project. Hey, we need a huge new substation, or we want to build a new gas plant or something like that. Utility generally has to go through a planning process and then come to the utility or come to the PUC and ask for what's called a certificate of public convenience or necessity. It's kind of saying like, hey, we want to have our own approval process for this big thing. And then they have another process, which is for what utilities would term regular course of business. So, you know, if a transformer down the street needs to be replaced, they generally don't need to go to the commission to ask for permission to do that. And so most of the asks that are part of this rate case fall into that second category. So over the last, 8 years, they've been upgrading substations and upgrading transmission lines, all that fall kind of under the bar for like a special need. And so they have been spending and, developing out their system, like I said, with transmission and distribution things over the last year, but haven't needed to ask. And so the part of what the rate case will do is will allow interveners to look at those investments and make an argument, well, the company will be required to make an argument that those investments are prudent and were needed, and other interveners will get to counter that argument. And in concept, if those investments aren't prudent, then those would not be then included in rate base. But that will be, part of the things that that we fight about in front of the commissioners.
Are the rates typically, I guess, maybe this kind of ties in with that the previous question there, but are the rates backward looking and today to cover past costs that weren't necessarily covered by previous rate cases, or are they forward looking and trying to come up, presenting a plan for investment for the future, and the rates need to be set to cover this plan? How is that?
So a little of both. The way rate making, generally is laid out is the company will present what's called a test year. And this is like the proxy year for all its costs, operations and maintenance and salaries and rent or mortgage for buildings and kind of all its normal operating costs. It'll present, a proxy case for that. And then it will also present, these investments as a kind of separate category. And they'll use that test year and those investments to set the annual revenue requirement for years going forward. So 8 years ago, the commission said, these are all the operating cost and maintenance costs you'll need annually. And hey, here are the investments that we're going to add on top of that. And that should be enough revenue for you to recover all your costs until you come in for the next rate case. And so presumably, 8 years ago, the commission set operations and maintenance costs and all those other things that are still sufficient for them for this year, right? I mean, they didn't adjust for inflation or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's, we were a little off then if you can go 8 years without increasing your operations and maintenance budget and whatnot. But that's a different thing. But, they have, for the last 8 years, they've been operating under revenue that was approved 8 years ago. And now they're looking to recalibrate that for the next X amount of years until they come in for rate case again.
And this rate case is obviously just energy rates. There are other types of rate cases that might be filed too, right? And there are other types of filings that they've made over one recently.
Yeah, there are
distinctions between some of those.
Yeah, so think of the rate case as just, the general energy costs. The costs rolled into that, per kilowatt hour on your bill and that fixed charge. And then there are other riders on the bill for other things. So Black Hills has a transportation electrification plan. And so I think there's a rider on the bill that says something like TEP, and there's a couple dollars, there. And then they have a low income and then a DSMCA and then the clean energy, clean jobs rider and the RESA, the renewable energy standard adjustment. So there are lots of other costs that are also on the bill that fall kind of in different proceedings. I mean, that's not unusual. We use a lot of riders in Colorado.
Those aren't the subject of this particular.
They are not. They are not generally. There are a few things that would affect them, but broadly, we're talking about the rate.
As a member of the public, can I ask?
Yes, please.
Okay. Joe, in this notice that was just mailed out, there's a comment about riders that I think goes to this point. It says, Black Hills Energy is proposing changes in the relative amount of revenues collected from each customer class. The annual revenue increase reflects the proposed changes to base rates, which is what they're applying for, including the roll-in of investments currently recovered through several riders, and the proposed recovery of rate case expenses. The implication is that some of the riders will go away as they roll them into the kilowatt hour cost. Is that correct?
I would not say go away. So,
So we'll still have a dozen of them.
yes. But there's, I don't know if it's a dozen, but there will still
About
be
a dozen.
a lot. I think, what they mean is there are certain, assets. And I'm only kind of skimmed the proceeding at this point, but, I think there's a particular generation asset that we're familiar with. That has been getting cost recovery through a rider up to this point. It doesn't have its own rider, it's part of the broader rider. And now that is getting rolled into base rates instead of collection for the rider. So it becomes an asset of the company and they are able to earn a return on it. But it has to be part of this base rate collection as opposed to contemporaneous collection in a rider.
The reason I'm bringing this up is that right now, the base rate is 10 cents a kilowatt hour, right? 0.999, 9.99 or whatever it is. They're proposing to raise it to 14.8 cents. That's a lot more than an 18% increase. So the base rate going from 10 to 14 and almost 15 is a larger increase in the base rate. Therefore, it has to be offset by reduction in the rider rates that the customers are charged.
I think that when they use percentage, that is percentage of the bill,
I know,
not percentage
of the base rate,
of the rate.
but the base rate they're proposing to increase is by 50%. Just about
Th-
9.99 to
That could,
14.8.
that could be right, but it also could only be an impact of,
Yeah,
$9 or $10 on the bill, where the bill is 109. What is it? Let me see. I got my number here.
they say 20 on the
So
bill.
$20 from $1.09 to $1.29, which is a monthly increase of 18%.
Yeah.
But base rates will see a considerably larger increase if everything that they approve is included in the base rate. And so you're right. I'm not disagreeing with anything, but some of it is about, you message, how you message what's happening to the rates.
So, when they built their Pueblo Airport Generation Station for PAGs, the rates for ratepayers doubled. So, so this big aberration occurred, this happened 14 years ago. Now the PAG's resources are being underutilized because of the renewable energy they've added, or going to be adding. Is there a way we can recoup some of the rates from them selling that energy to other utilities?
I mean, I think that's an area that would be useful to explore. I think that with all assets, there is kind of at the approval point, there is the company will propose, this is the capacity factor at which this will run. This is why it's cost effective. This is the value proposition. And if they don't meet that criteria, that's up. I think that's fair game within inclusion for rates. I mean, we're interested in that question. We're interested in, how debt is being passed from the parent company, down to the subsidiary and that allocation. I mean, I think there are a lot of those questions. From the company's perspective, they want full rate recovery for everything. Yeah, we want fair rate. We shouldn't customers shouldn't have to pay things that aren't, for things that aren't, meeting the promises.
A fair rate will be a rate reduction.
I don't disagree.
So we have an online question. Is it the 30-day time limit that's signing up for intervener, or is it the deadline for the hearing?
For the interview.
Okay.
Didn't they, on this PUC meeting today, didn't they push that intervening date out a little bit?
They may have. My memory is filled with a lot of dates.
I mean, they originally requested that intervention date to be this month. I think they pushed that to August.
Let me check on that and I'll send the group a firm date. I think you're right. Generally, it's 30-day guide.
Could I address that quickly? They did at the commissioners meeting this morning, they did give the date of August 2nd.
So about 30 some days.
So is that date what does that date mean? I'm a little confused, sorry. Is that the day there's a hearing, or is that the day everything has to be into the commission?
And that would be the date that interested parties would file by that date, interested parties would file their intervention before the commission. Like I said, for us, we will just file something that says, we want to intervene and these are the general issues that we're interested in exploring. It's kind of like a heads up to the commission that these might be live issues. For permissive interveners, there's like an extra step, which requires you to demonstrate a tangible or pecuniary interest in the proceeding. This commission, not legal advice, but this commission is generally very permissive in who gets in cases. Like they want to hear voices and perspectives and what you can bring.
Thank you. So a resident or a citizen, do they have to submit something to the commission by that date? Like when does public comment? When does that do, I guess?
Yeah, so public comment, that's a great question. There's a distinction between an intervener, right? An intervener is a formal party that's going to present a legal case. There's broad opportunity for public comment. Throughout the case, the commission will accept public comment from individuals or organized groups. You can submit written comments through the Public Utilities Commission website. In addition, parties will be pushing for, in-person and hybrid or online public comment hearings where the public can come and make comment in person.
So my question was more of a hypothetical. What would be the complexities with municipalizing the infrastructure? I mean, I'm just, right, the easiest solution to a problem is normally the most direct one.
Yeah, I don't actually know. Like, I mean, it's complex beyond my
I just on the graph you showed, the cheapest option was municipalized.
I mean, I know that, the city has explored that option. There's obviously like the interface there is the franchise agreement between the city and the company, and those are approved through the PUC. And so
there is a 2025 off ramp. So that would allow us, if we had the will, to municipal. Now, Black Hills, is not a willing party as of today to do that, right? So it would be a legal process to condemn that property and take control.
So are there any other questions from our online folks? If not, Ken, do you want to move?
We have a question, Steve.
Yeah, Joe, I've heard from sources that Pueblo County may ask the PUC to pull the CPCN from Black Hills. Now, that's like pulling your driver's license and canceling. That's saying you no longer can do what you're doing, and we're gonna go elsewhere for service. That's sort of the nuclear option. That's not putting it to a vote to municipalize. That's saying, trying to go to the PUC to say the demands are so outrageous that we should be able to go elsewhere. And you should pull the CPCN. Any thoughts on that? Have you heard of that? And how does that strike you
No.
if you haven't?
I don't think I have a comment on that. I think every party, you know, will build their own legal strategy. I mean, I haven't heard that. I don't have a reaction.
Then what will the UCA legal strategy be? What are you? Can you give us a sneak preview? I mean, it's gonna be go after that 10.5% return. That's outrageous.
I mean, I think broadly, you know, we are interested in, you know, affordable rates for quality service, right? And what I hear from the people of Pueblo is these are not affordable rates, and we're unhappy with the service we get. So, you know, so our statutory mandate is to reflect that. And so we'll develop a case that does everything it can to, you know, reduce things like ROE, to put capital structure, you know, in line with where it should be, to minimize returns, you know, to call in question some of the expenses that they've made. And that's our legal duty. You know, as we develop a case and discovery, you know, that will lead us to, you know, how harsh are the asks and reductions? I don't know, harsh isn't even the right word. How deep are the asks and reductions that we can ask? So we're very early, so I don't know that we even have like a deep understanding of the case yet, but we hear a lot and have heard for a decade, you know, or more, that this is not fair and equitable for customers in Pueblo, and we'll do our best to reflect that in our case.
So do we have any questions from our folks online? See Emily's hand is up.
I think Emily.
Yes, thanks. If I can just jump in, a couple of things I'll just say real quickly, that there's a lot of different measures of the level of poverty and low income in this service territory. One measure is median household income. I know in the Canyon City area, our median household income is around 34% below the statewide median, which is even much farther below the Denver area median. And I'm sure Pueblo's is, you know, at least as severe as that. And then I have a question for Joe, if I can. Is there any part of the UCA's process, or do you expect there will be a part of the process where you will be, in developing your strategy for UCA, will there be a process for getting input from the communities in this service territory?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to reach out shortly and probably make a trip up to Canyon again to have a conversation. But
We'd love to do that.
This is part of the process, right? The first steps we can take is in trying to reach out and you meet with folks and, you know, come down and hear, you know, your perspectives. I think then, you know, we'll develop our case, but it helps to build coalitions around these things too. And so I mean, that will be part of
Yeah, so for folks that don't know, Emily Tracy is a city councilor in Canyon City.
Yes, thanks, Ken.
Diane, do you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you know my name's Diane. The BHE gives donations to all nonprofits that work and help with the low-income people. And BHE is collecting money from all our bills to help the low income, okay? They also give, like in 2020, they gave a donation to help the county with a 1A project. Now, but then they turn around and raise our rates. Here they're giving all these donations, and I'm sure these donations, they can write off on their taxes. So do you take that in account when you approve their requests?
Yeah, I would say, twofold. One, the PUC is looking at, kind of all of these elements. We support the low income assistance riders. I mean, these are required for all the utilities, but, broadly supported. I think one interesting question that maybe we all need to put forward to the commission is, how we're looking at affordability, because I think Diane's statement is right in that, like, if you provide bill assistance for customers, but then raise your rates at the same time, you're kind of like undoing the intent. But also we see like rates are outpacing bill assistance, rate increases are outpacing bill assistance considerably. And so, one perspective we have is what we see in a lot of cases is the whole thing gets adjudicated and a decision gets made and costs or rates or whatnot go up. And then we say, okay, let's deal with affordability now. Let's add some money to the low income fund, or let's get the utility to donate some money. And that isn't a kind of effective, in our perspective, effective way to deal with unaffordability of bills, right? At the beginning, we need to really look at how do we make bills affordable? And then if we need more bill assistance or something on the tail end, we'll do that. But you can't agree to spend $500 million or something and then say, all right, we're gonna, add a 10-cent rider to help a few people. Like, that's disproportionate to what the goal is.
So.
Well, the other part of that is that there are some people that don't get approved for that assistance and they end up homeless. Then we're dealing with even a different problem.
Yeah, and it has been a challenge over the years. The Black Hills program in particular has been a challenge of both at making sure there are sufficient funds and that it's properly administered to ensure that doesn't happen. And so that might be another topic here in this case.
Black Hills, advertises that this is a benefit they're giving, the customers, this assistance, but it's really the bill payers, because it's a line item on our bill. So they're really not, they're not kindly giving some donations to help the people that can't afford their energy. We, the bill payers, pay for that.
Ken, do you have any questions about the franchise for Bob? Any franchise questions?
Well, I guess we do have this opportunity in 2025. If we had the political will to municipalize, we could do that. But it would be a very tough process. We might be able to find partners in the energy industry to help us with that. But I think, Canyon City did not renew their franchise when it came up a couple of years ago, and they're kind of dealing with this. So maybe we could learn from Canyon City a little bit. I don't
When it comes
have
to franchise agreement, I do have a question for Bob. There is a sentence in our franchise agreement that says that they will give us reasonable and affordable rates. And that is not what they're doing. So is there anything that we can enforce in the franchise agreement that says it has to be reasonable and affordable.
It'll be through intervention on the PUC case is what we're gonna have.
I think the franchise agreement also has some other aspects to it too. I guess one is that the city can generate its own energy if they want to. So, there's not only for just their buildings, but other customers in the distribution system. So that may not be something the city wants to do. There was this idea in the state legislation, which they call consumer choice energy, that did not get onto the 2024 docket, that could get on the 2025 docket if there was interest. And the idea here is you can replace your power supply with another company if the state approved the consumer choice energy law. This is a little different but similar to what Texas and California has done, where you could choose your energy supplier, but it would be different from the standpoint that the community would make that choice, not the individual.
Right, and it's wholesale choice, not retail. So you'd still have Black Hills in the mix, but would have the legal ability to get energy on the open market at probably more affordable rates.
Can I hit on, I know we're up against time. Can I hit on one other thing that I think might be relevant and that we're certainly interested in? And so, Steve mentioned rate case expenses. And rate case expenses have been an issue that the UCA has been taking on for years. Broadly, at the end of a case, the utility gets to collect dollar for dollar all of the expenses it incurs relative to a rate case. And so that's, all of the lawyers, all of the experts, all of the staff and individual resources that it uses to put its case forward. The UCA has been making the argument that that's not fair for ratepayers to pay the entirety of the cost of the company's case, even though they may be arguing for things that are not in ratepayers' interests. This will be an issue in this proceeding. Several years ago, then Representative Esgar, now Commissioner Esgar, started putting legislation forward to work against that practice. And then finally last year, that became part of that last session, 2 sessions ago, became part of legislation, but it's worded in a way that is very ambiguous through lots of lobbying efforts and whatnot. And so now this will be an issue in the case. And I think, I would, propose to the cities that might be something you consider as a live issue in your advocacy, because we think at the very least those costs should be split 50-50. But maybe more. But there are, we would propose that there are certain things in this proceeding that are anti-customer. And as such, customers should not have to pay for lawyers, resources, consultants, and those things that move those forward.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because they're working against the customer in those cases. So they're asking to be reimbursed from our bills to pay for their justification to raise our.
Yeah, I mean, a higher ROE is a reflection of that, right? That's a larger return for shareholders from
ratepayer.
Okay, any more questions? If not, thank you. We appreciate you coming down to share your knowledge. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. We're happy to be, a resource for anyone as this moves forward. I'm more than happy to come down and meet again or head to Canyon City or wherever we need to be to provide a resource. So thank you for the invitation.
And we know some good restaurants you can eat dinner at.
I explore quite a bit. I always find a good one when I come down.
So would you like to move on to strategy discussion or table it until next meeting or talk about the next meeting?
I guess, our next on our agenda, we were in the midst of doing a strategic plan. And we had developed a SWOT analysis. We got quite a bit of input to that SWOT table, just to kind of, and now we're in kind of a rating thing. I don't know if there's an update on the progress of that.
Sure. So I know that there's been some responses in the documents, weighting and ranking the most important issues, but for those who haven't completed that yet, please log in and complete that over the next week or two so we can move along with the next step of that. And I don't know, Dr. Mike, if you'd like to share a little bit about the next steps after we have completed the ranking. But if not, we can just continue to move forward.
Sure. So as George had asked, please log on and fill out that form. Ken, just a reminder, you had done the top half of it, so you did the strengths and weakness. If you could also fill in the opportunities and threats, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I got diverted because of this rate increase, so I've been spending my energy on that. But yes, I will do that.
I understand distractions. We our dean has resigned, and we have a new interim that has been appointed, and we've been kind of turned upside down at the university a bit in the School of Business, but we're finding our footing and moving forward. So steps after this, once those columns have been filled out, I will determine a quantitative rating from that. So it's just going to be just processing the data that you gave me. I won't be adding any kind of subjective measure. It will be objective. So we'll have a weighting for each strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat, and there'll be a performance average that will also be applied. Once we have that result, we'll be able to move forward and work on determining goals that we would like to set, probably short term and longer term, but certainly things that we'll want to be working on in the next 3 to 6 months to move our agenda forward.
Really appreciate your help, Mike, and also a shout out to Tom for helping getting this organized too.
Would you like to talk about the upcoming work session presentation and what we'd like to present to City Council?
So we asked for a time on August 22nd, I think is the
July 22nd, right?
Okay,
I thought it was
you're
this
right.
month.
You're right, July 22nd. In 2 or 3 weeks, basically, that we can give a presentation to the City Council, a work session. I had proposed to George that we look at kind of the accomplishments of the group, kind of go over the reinforce the net zero fire stations, talk about this energy performance contract, just to kind of keep let people understand what that means. That there should be a big net benefit to that. To the cost of city buildings. Or operation of it, either energy savings or energy, even energy generation. And then the final discussion topic will be around this Black Hills rate increase. To sit and talk about that and what things we can do to deal with that or mitigate it.
So we have been sort of discussing about what a ordinance for an exemption for renewable energy components would look like for the city, helping lower the soft cost for renewable energy installs. So I'd like to help present that as well and determine what the financial implications are of that.
Yeah, I think we probably need some understanding in what Black Hills plans to do with net metering. Because they probably want to stop that too.
Tom, I see your hands raised. Please go ahead. Tom, are you with us? You're muted if so.
So Tom, are you there? And you need to unmute. He may have had his hand up for a while.
Ghosting machine. Well, Tom, if you can hear us, feel free to jump back in, but can't get to us. We can talk about maybe suggestions for the next meeting, what you'd like to see.
Did we have any suggestions for the next meeting? If not, George and I will work on the agenda. We could do this via email if there's some topics that any commissioner wants to bring up. You know, we can let George know, or city council if they want us to address something. Let us know. And I guess that probably ends the meeting. Is that?
Sure. Would you like to adjourn?
Yeah, adjourn and happy 4th of July.
Right. Great. Thanks, everyone online.
Bye. Thank you. Happy 4th.
Thank you.
I gotta ask, who's your hairstylist?
His name's Trinidad. I've been going him for the last 11 years. He works at Steel City on the north side.
You did a great job.
Thanks. You want his info?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody?